Welcome to the Fiat Ministry Show, episode 142. Welcome, everybody, to tonight's show. I have two great guests on. One actually is from last week, and we were talking, and he had a situation down helping out his family, and down in Tennessee, and he wanted to share that, and basically denied communion, and he'll give more detail on that. And Jim Sheets again to share his stories on, just always a great guest to have on. I really appreciate his time. Always. He says yes to Fiat all the time, and I really appreciate his friendship and his willingness to come on the show. I just want to ask everybody to please like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please do that if you can. Of course, we ask for prayers, number one. But if you could financially, we do have on our website, fiatministrynetwork.tv, PayPal account. We are trying to go to a 501c3. There's a couple opportunities. I was talking to another friend, another bill opportunity to do a 501c3, and he was going to help us out with that. So I'm really excited about that. So we'll hopefully get to that point in the next couple months. Hopefully, if things work out. But tonight we're going to be talking about a lot of things that is mainly trending, the coronavirus, and also what's going on in the church to deny communion on the tongue. And that's kind of a I'll let Bill speak, but again, let's start in prayer, and then we'll have Jim and Bill on. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Lord, just allow us to have the guidance that you want us to share tonight, allowing how much and how precious the Source and Summit, the Eucharist, is for us, and to allow us to know that we need you more than ever right now. I think there's a lot going on in this world right now that we need to understand, but right now, in your just thoughts and ways of sharing through graces that you give us tonight, that we could just give all the honor and glory to you, and to allow just the graces of just the love that we have for you. Bless Bill and his family. Thank you for just allowing us to have time with him, and also to Jim and his family, and just blessings, and just both the friendship that we have with both of them, and just allow a great conversation, and just all the love and glory, and just respect and honor that you give us, the way that we share tonight. Just bless everyone that is affected by this virus and everything that's going on in this time of the world, and just the United States being affected so deeply right now in different ways. In your name we pray. In the name of Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Until now, we will bring on Jim and Bill. Welcome, guys. Thank you very much for coming on. Of course, I always want to thank Jim and also Bill for just your mentioning of what was going on when you were helping out your family and all that down with Tennessee, with all the tornadoes getting hit. And thank goodness none of your family members, but other than the house, was damaged, but no serious injuries or deaths and all that. So Bill, I like to leave the floor to you, and kind of let you lead tonight's show, and just what happened down in Tennessee that you would like to share.
Well, essentially, as you mentioned earlier, Kent, there's all this craziness going on because of COVID-19, and a lot of dioceses really around the world are starting to suspend reception from the cup. Um, they encourage the people in the parish not to receive on the tongue. There's skipping sign of peace, all that kind of stuff. And so when I was down in Nashville helping my folks, I obviously I had to go to church because there was a Sunday in there, and so we found a church, and I went, and right in front of the whole congregation, I was denied communion on the tongue.
Oh,
Um, I didn't think it was a big deal, but rather than sort of bumble my way through the recap, if you don't mind, I have a letter that I wrote to the Bishop of Nashville after the fact.
yeah.
And so this will tell the story and what my thoughts were on it, if that's okay.
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So this is dated for March 10th, 2020. And just for the sake of charity, I'm going to omit the location, the exact address of the parish, and we're also going to call the priest in question Father Smith. I don't want his
Mm-hmm.
name out there in public.
Fair.
So the letter goes, Your Excellency, I am writing to you to make you aware of a deeply offensive liturgical experience I had while attending Mass at one of the parishes within your diocese this past Sunday, March 8th, 2020. Last week, I traveled from Cleveland, Ohio to Lebanon, Tennessee to assist my mother and stepfather in cleanup and repair efforts to their home, which was struck by the tornadoes of March 3rd, 2020, staying with them until the evening of March 8th. Obviously, I needed to find somewhere to fulfill my Sunday obligation, and so my mother recommended a parish that she frequently attends. At the 11 o'clock Mass, the pastor and the priest in question, Father Smith, made an announcement at the beginning of Mass regarding the reception of the sacraments in relation to the ongoing spread of COVID 19 in the United States and around the world. He explained that as a precautionary measure, the holy water fonts at church entrances had been removed, that reception from the chalice had been suspended, that people should not join hands while reciting the Our Father, that they should not shake hands at the sign of peace, but rather wave or nod. And finally, he stated that, quote, I strongly urge everyone to receive communion in the hand instead of on the tongue. Like many Catholic laity, I have long found the practice of reception in the hand to be abhorrent, well before the existence of COVID 19, though I myself certainly pass no judgment on those of the laity who choose to receive in this manner. However, given Father Smith's choice of phrasing, I see nothing in that statement that would constitute some sort of official decree or mandate. Furthermore, after looking over the website for the Diocese of Nashville, I find no statements made either by yourself or anyone from the Catholic Pastoral Center that would indicate otherwise. When this announcement was made by Father Smith, I immediately turned to my mother, who was also in attendance with me, and explained that while I understood the point that Father Smith was trying to make, as concerns exercising caution when coming into close contact with others, nonetheless I could not in good conscience show such irreverence to His Majesty by handling him so carelessly with my unconsecrated hands, and risking the loss of particles or fragments, a far more grave matter, in my opinion, than any accidental exposure to a coronavirus. When the time came to receive, I presented myself as I normally do, on my knees with my hands folded to my chest and my tongue fully extended with my head tilted slightly back. To my shock and surprise, Father Smith demanded that I receive in the hand. At this, I became so upset that I hastily grabbed the host from his hand, put it in my mouth, and angrily walked back to my pew and returned to kneeling. I tried to focus mentally and silently asked the Lord to help me calm down and control my emotions, but it was to no avail. I had become so upset that I no longer felt it proper to remain in the house of God, given my state of mind. And so once the Lord was safely reposed in the tabernacle, I simply genuflected and walked out, without waiting for the final blessing and dismissal. I merely paced back and forth outside, waiting for my mother to come out after Mass, who also expressed great surprise that Father Smith would do such a thing. In hindsight, I feel a tremendous sense of remorse and regret for my reaction, not to mention embarrassment, as this happened in front of the entire congregation. Unfortunately, I let my emotions get the better of me, and there's not much I can do after the fact. Now I'm left to wonder or fear, due to my improper disposition, that I may have received the Lord in an unworthy manner, cited from 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 29. My only recourse at this point is to discuss the matter with my own parish priest and, if necessary, seek the confessional. I nonetheless find such actions to be reprehensible, and they deeply offend my piety. As you are no doubt aware, Father Smith's actions this past Sunday stand directly opposed to a letter from the Congregation for Divine Worship and the Discipline of the Sacraments, dated July 24th, 2009, the year of the swine flu pandemic. which states, quote, "This dicastery observes that its instruction, Redemptionis Sacramentum, 25th March 2004, clearly stipulates that each of the faithful always has the right to receive Holy Communion on the tongue," cited from number 92. "Nor is it licit to deny Holy Communion to any of Christ's faithful who are not impeded by law from receiving the Holy Eucharist," cited from number 91. Unquote. Additionally, in a letter dated April 3rd, 1985, from the Congregation of Divine Worship to the National Conference of Catholic Bishops is stated the following, quote, "The Holy See, since 1969, while maintaining the traditional manner of distributing communion, has granted to those Episcopal conferences that have requested it the faculty of distributing by placing the host in the hands of the faithful. The faithful are not obliged to adopt the practice of communion in the hand. Each one is free to communicate in one way or the other," unquote. Finally, there is the general instruction of the Roman Missal, issued by the Congregation for Divine Worship and the Discipline of the Sacraments on November 12th, 2002, cited from number 161, quote, "If communion is given only under the species of bread, the priest raises the host slightly and shows it to each, saying, 'The body of Christ.' The communicant replies, 'Amen,' and receives the sacrament either on the tongue or, where this is allowed, in the hand, the choice lying with the communicant. Concerning fears of an increased risk of the spread of COVID-19 due to the reception on the tongue compared to in the hand, in all honesty, Excellency, I find these to be rather unfounded, as do a number of other Catholic laity and clergy. As Bishop Athanasius Schneider, Auxiliary Bishop of Astana, Kazakhstan, rightly points out in an opinion piece for Orate Celi, later reprinted by LifeSite News, the practice of communion in the hand is no more hygienic than that of communion on the tongue, given the enormous amount of various bacteria and pathogens that are transmitted by one's hands. In other words, it makes no difference if Father Smith places the host in my hands if there is already, unknown to either of us, some kind of bacteria present on his hands with which he uses to give me the host. I would also like to point out that any priest, be it Father Smith or others, as well as the extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion who are coming into frequent or repeated contact with the tongue of a communicant are, quite frankly, doing it wrong, or else the communicant is, by not fully extending their tongue and tilting their head. When done properly by both the minister and the communicant, there is virtually zero contact with the tongue. U.S. priest Father John Zulsdorf confirms as much on his popular blog when reflecting upon his almost 30 years of distributing communion. And I find it rather odd, perhaps even paradoxical, that while there are so many people claiming that communion on the tongue should be avoided for safety's sake, yet none of these same individuals seem to want to suspend the use of extraordinary ministers for the same reason. Would it not indeed be safer if only one person, the priest, were distributing the host instead of many? As Father Smith's actions constitute for me at least an abuse of authority, but possibly even an outright liturgical abuse, it is my sincere hope that you will speak both to him as well as to all your priests concerning such matters in order to clear up all the confusion. My other hope is that the Lord will lead you to similar conclusions as that of Archbishop Alexander Sample in the Archdiocese of Portland, Oregon, who has not only shown tremendous backbone in forbidding his priests to ban communion on the tongue, but has also demonstrated a fair amount of common sense by actually bothering to consult multiple physicians on this matter, one of whom is a specialist in immunology for the state of Oregon. To be clear, Excellency, the purpose of my letter is not to quote unquote get someone in trouble. I have no doubts that Father Smith is a good man and cares deeply for the faithful that have been entrusted to his care. On the other hand, I do not believe that any of the faithful should be made to feel guilty or have their consciences scandalized simply because they wish to show reverence to our Lord. As for myself, my logic is such that if I become infected with this coronavirus because I am simply trying to show His Majesty the reverence he deserves as a matter of right, then my response is simply, Fiat voluntas tua, thy will be done. And obviously, simple common sense dictates, as it should for all the laity and clergy, that if I know myself to be ill, then I should not be in Mass for fear of making those around me ill. In closing, I would like to thank you for taking the time to read my letter. I have included with this letter links and addresses to the various individuals and or articles that I have referenced for your further consideration and reflection. And I pray the Lord continues to help your community to heal and to rebuild from last week's storms, and also that he might grant you and your community his protection from this current virus. Respectfully, William Parsons. So that was my letter.
Wow. Yeah, thanks.
And I got a one-line response from his assistant. Thanks for your letter. The issues are being addressed. So that was, wow. I think Bishop code for take a hike, pal.
Not always. I wrote a similar letter about the church that I attend, and I had several different liturgical, uh, 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 well, in my mind, uh, errors that were being committed. One being not being allowed as a Eucharistic minister to dispense on the tongue and being told not to. And I got the same one line response, but then I found that the practice changed. So it took like a couple months before I actually saw it in practice happening. And I guess I just wasn't given the luxury of knowing or the satisfaction of knowing whether or not it was my letter that caused it to happen. But there were another number of other things like referring to God as the feminine pronoun during, yes, yeah,
You're kidding me.
yeah, asking for, prayers from our father and our mother.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
you know, a number of things. I had a I had a gay couple renew their wedding vows right behind my wife and I during a ceremony that was, and
Mm.
no one did much except pat him on the back and congratulate him at the lunch break. And you
Wow.
had to sign up for that thing and register, so it's not like they didn't have the possible. So I complained to probably about 5 or 6 different things,
Yeah.
and I don't know if they changed their minds or not. But you may not get the satisfaction, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to get the impact.
Right. Right.
Pray for that
Yeah.
church, and
Yeah.
it could change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all you can do.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the things that are going on right now are just not. I just wonder what is, what, especially over in, Rome, where, even the Pope is saying, okay, and I understand he is under, I believe he's been sick or something of that effect, that he's, taking a break and not doing as much of the work that he's, capable of doing now. But I think something is going on. But they're just, cutting off everything. And I know there's I think a priest that wants a procession of the Eucharist. I think it's on the 19th, I believe, or March. But I mean, there's priests that are out there that are trying to, keep momentum. But I'm just wondering what you guys think, of everything going on in Rome, and just cutting off everything. I mean, it just seems
Well,
over. Personally, I think it's overkill, but that's just, and I get, like, you don't know, but
yeah,
I think there's something to affect that when you are denied the you the the communion on the tongue because of just a chance of something. I mean, the way Bill wrote that, the letter, and saying that, if I do, yeah, in case I do catch this virus, it'll be done. I mean, it's just that sense of understanding that,
well,
I
I
don't
think
know.
it could have been handled differently by the priest. I mean, I don't think causing that person a sense of embarrassment at that moment, at that time, is worth it. They go to such extreme measures to not deny certain politicians that are outspoken about abortion communion for fear of embarrassing them and saying that's personal, that's between them and God, whether or not they have mortal sins, and I'm not going to be the one to deny them communion at that moment in time because I don't know their state of grace.
Mm.
So, and if they're willing to forego embarrassing people for that reason, I think that they should. I think that there's more leeway in the situation that Bill described to avoid that type of. Uh, I don't know. It seems unnecessary to put focus on somebody that way.
Well,
And
particularly Jim. I mean, he didn't
look what it
say
did to your state
anything.
of mind. Look what it did to your state of mind.
Right. Yeah. And he didn't. It wasn't a mandate. I mean, his words were, "I strongly urge everyone to." So it
Right.
was a
I
suggestion.
I
You know.
take the word strong. Our own priest in the church that I go to has strongly encouraged. but I interpret and strongly encourage as I have the option.
Bingo.
And if unless it's actually restricted, like you shall not, then I don't think
Right.
people should be surprised when they
Right.
come to receive. I don't think
Well,
that's fair.
actually, Jim, that's not even possible even for a bishop. I just found that out in the last few days, that only the Pope, and you can, if you know any canonists in Rome, you can confirm this with them, but
I believe you.
only the Pope is the only man on earth who has the power to change the universal norms of the church. And that's what I think some people don't understand here, is that, so many people they receive communion on the hand, right? Well,
Right.
actually, the norm is on the tongue. The reason,
Outside the United States, right?
right? No, everywhere. I mean, they're all granted by indult. This started with Belgium and Holland way back when, late 60s into the 70s. They were actually disobeying Rome, and Rome told them to knock it off a couple different times, and they wouldn't listen. So finally, Pope Paul VI just kind of gave in. The document he wrote escapes me, but little by little, there's all these different countries started requesting the indult, and that's why we have that everywhere now, including here in the United States. But it's not the norm. In other words, he granted an exception to the rule.
So somewhere along the line, that exception got flipped into the preference, and shaming people to say, how dare you come in here and possibly infect this elderly population we have here, and this potentially sick why don't you care about them? Let's protect them. And gosh, I think that's really happening here, in particular in California and San Francisco area. And I know that it's going to be laughed at to say this, but I do believe there's some influence of politics going on here in the decision making, that this is something bigger than what. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that we were receiving from the same cup of the blood of Christ, and no one, and we're doing this archaic way of wiping it with a cloth, like that's going to take away the germ somehow, and no one even commenting on that. And influenza I know the thing about this particular virus is that it's 10 times more transmissible and 10 times more deadly for a certain population.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, but the amount of deaths that occurred from regular flu hasn't even been surpassed yet.
And the flu kills like 0.1% of people. So when you say 10 times more, I mean,
10 times for those over 60.
Yeah, I mean,
0.58% for those in total.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the thing is I mean, like I said, if I don't feel good, then I'm not going to go to church. I mean, this is, you can say this without COVID-19. If you're probably coming down with the flu or whatever, then you're not going to go.
Right.
And you're under no obligation to go. But it's again, this idea of somehow or another, there's a greater chance for germs to infect somebody just by reception on the tongue. Yeah. I'm sorry, I can't get behind that. Again, there is zero evidence. Show me anywhere where it's proved conclusively or even half conclusively that there are fewer germs on your hands than than on your tongue, or that it's less risky. You're not going to find it.
Yeah, I mean, as a biologist myself, I mean, the question about whether or not the priest's hands have touched the tongue of the previous person and now is passing what he received from that person's tongue to the next person's tongue, if he inadvertently even touched the tongue, or then a child's hand, which who knows where that has been, and then person after person. Yeah. I mean, it's a wonder that they're not giving the whole mass with nitrile gloves and respirators in the first place.
Right.
So it's not, we're not really following any particular rules of science in the mass in itself, I don't think. So I don't know how much thought has gone in from a science perspective with the practice of the mass. I haven't seen much in that regard.
Well, there's a couple interesting points that, I referenced an opinion piece that Bishop Athanasius Schneider did. He pointed out the fact that there's zero instances of, transmitting like during times of plague historically in 2,000 years. You can't point to this ginormous spread of some plague simply because of communion on the tongue. And by the way, before at least the year 1900, this was not done anywhere. There was no reception in the hand, and I mean, there was no spread of any kind of deadly virus due to the practice of communion in all those centuries.
Actually, you're more likely to get it from the proximity to your neighbor within the congregation, and the pew that you're sitting in not being sanitized from the previous mass.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody going in between, because what they're saying is what's unique about this particular virus is it can sit in the air, particularly dry air, for up to 3 hours, and it can live on surfaces for 3 days.
Wow.
So it's unique in that regard. So just you being near someone, you're more likely to pick it up there than you are receiving it during communion.
Right. Yeah. Well, and the other thing too that and this is kind of I don't know if it's provable or not, but if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, one of the things that Bishop Schneider and several other people actually have pointed out, that there are certain groups or certain individuals within the church that seem to be getting kind of a cynical joy out of this, as far as banning people from receiving on the tongue, because there is a vocal faction within the church. There has been for at least 60 years that want nothing more than to do away with that completely.
Germaphobe?
No, to Protestantize the mass. This is my opinion, but I digress. But yeah, there are some people out there that they look at communion on the tongue as archaic and
I see.
Got to go with the times. Modernists we call them.
Yeah.
So
well, I see Marco has written a couple things. I put one of them up. I'm not trying to stop, but just a great point. No problem allowing politicians that support abortion to receive communion, but there's the of denying a faithful Catholic communion on the tongue. And then he's enjoying the talk tonight. So thank you for watching, Marco.
They shut down our adoration chapel, which is we have a new adoration chapel, and we've got a cycle of people that are dedicated, people that go in each hour, and they're shutting it down as of Saturday because of this the small proximity of the space. And I'm just like, wait a minute, just because of the space you're shutting that whole activity so we can't even practice adoration as a community, which is a big move, I think, for my church, because that's a brand new adoration chapel that we all dedicated money and time to. But to shut that down, and then I'm required to get on this BART train station subway to get to work, on the following Monday, which has got everybody crammed in like sardines. And I was like, what are we doing? Why are we doing? Some of it's just inconsistent.
Because you won't get sick on the subway, but you'll definitely get sick in the chapel, Jim. That's what they're trying to say.
Well, there's so few people in that chapel, maybe 3. There's 6 pews in there. Where we got adequate. I can't believe I'm even using this word, social distancing from each other. But it just seems like it's all over the place in terms of what we're doing, what we're canceling, what practices. It's almost like mass panic has just caused us to just try anything and everything. Maybe some of it's just to show that we're committed to doing something.
I think it's partly panic, Jim, but I also think, I don't know, there's something funny going on here, because when you hear about, like them shutting down your chapel because of this, and, me getting denied communion on the tongue, and, all masses being suspended in Italy, even in the Vatican, and in the Archdiocese of Paris, and several other places they're banning communion and tongue.
Yeah.
There's something about this that I'm not saying this is what it is. It seems to me to be like maybe a warm-up act, but I do specifically recall something in the book of Daniel about when the holy sacrifice is taken away or when it's abolished.
Oh, right.
It kind of gives you, it raises the hackles on the
Oh,
back
you're
of your
going
neck.
there.
You know, why not? You know.
Well, my thing is, and this is, and we can continue. I'm not trying to I'm just going to give my 2 cents on how I feel, and I feel, you know, what Bill went through, and you know, even you, Jim. It's just frustrating to hear. My frustration, and to hear that, you know, people are going somewhat crazy and just going to the store to get stuff, and all this stuff about this virus, the coronavirus, and nothing can be, you can't go any crazy for 3,000 or 3,000 deaths every day on abortion. I personally get offended by that, because that, I mean, not receiving on the tongue communion and being denied that's, I mean, it's, I mean, I love what you were saying last week, Bill. I feel wrong not kneeling to receive on the tongue, and I totally respect that, and I just like am humbled to hear that from you. But for me, it's, I just like, I mean, we're at like 4,000. Like I have a website with the map of all the corona, you know, situation confirmed. The total deaths are 4,000. 4,700. Okay, 4,700. What is the total number of deaths today of abortions? Just today, not like, you know, the whole, you know, last 3 months, but let's see. I will put, it's 2,000 deaths just on abortion, and I'll show you the website in just a second. But I don't know. I just, for me, you know, I wish there, I mean, a pandemic on abortion. I mean, it's a Holocaust. It's our, and I just don't get how this virus.
Well, as long as you get Catholic politicians like Nancy Pelosi that want to tack on the Hyde Amendment for the $8.5 billion coronavirus aid, and the Hyde Amendment, I don't know if you know what that is, but that's basically freeing up taxpayer dollars to fund abortions.
Yeah.
You know, they've been trying to push that through for 25 years, and they see an opportunity to get their goodies in there, and using this as an opportunity to do that. And it's a Catholic politician that's doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got a lot of Catholics that seem to support or are fine with abortion. I think we got to take care of our own internal flock, sickness in their mind.
Well, can I ask you a question, Jim?
Yeah.
I think as a biologist, you probably might know a little bit more about this than I. But, you know, people with health complications aside, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, this is, you know, people that are dying from this, it's primarily boomers, right?
Well, I mean, you've got people that have underlying respiratory conditions. For instance, my son has asthma, and I'm particularly worried about him, and he's only 20.
Right.
So there's that. There's people that, you know, are immunocompromised.
All right.
Cancer and chemotherapy treatments. So there's more than just.
Oh, no, I'm not saying just boomers. I mean, I know there are other folks, but that seems to be the primary group. A lot of the deaths, I mean, I know there's some, you know, some folks in their 20s or their 30s, but it seems like folks in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. That's kind of the main target, right?
They said people that are in their 60s or older have like a 20% chance of having some extreme severe outcome.
Okay, so that's the boomers. So Not to wax mystical, fellas, but we're comparing abortion to this. Well, what generation gave us Roe v. Wade? Maybe somebody's saying something. Somebody's trying to make a point.
No,
I don't know, but you also have the leader of Iran saying this is God's punishment to the infidels, and as soon as he said that, he came down with coronavirus.
That's great.
Well,
who knows? I still think that there's a political layer here of some sort.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean,
Joe Biden's saying that the first thing that he's going to do is make sure that we don't call it Wuhan flu or Kung flu or Chinese virus or whatever, because he wants to tackle the xenophobia, and that's the highest priority. So let's get him in there so we can make sure that people frequent Chinese restaurants more and get over our inherent racism. So that's a
good plan.
Here.
Yeah, and I just for me it's just like, I mean, here's the stats. I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, those numbers are staggering. That will affect people. If you look at those numbers, I mean, just talking about since 61 million. I mean, it's 61 million. I mean, we're talking in just today. Okay, it's 21. It just changed. I was looking at it. It went from 2,000 to 2,100 now. I mean, just today. And I get it. I'm worried about my kids. My kids are off for 3 weeks. My wife is trying to plan in the next couple of days through all the as she's a teacher, trying to figure out how to teach kids with a packet of papers as they stay home. And I just just to go back to Bill's to start the show there's a point where I understand, like what Bill you're saying. You could probably have more bacteria on your hands than and the more and here's one question I have, and either one of you, I've heard with the precious blood, that when you receive that with the of course there's alcohol, that kills the germs. If I'm wrong on that, I mean, is that something that you've is that okay?
Jim's face says he's going to
I think it's a little. I've heard. Okay, all right.
There's some hillbilly lore here that I subscribe to, well, because my wife ordered some moonshine for me that I've got on my kitchen counter that I sip, to make sure. No, there's some science, a tiny bit about vasodilation and it being able to give you some kind of very slight effect, probably as much as an antihistamine would. I think actually a better thing would do is the first sign, and I do this for the regular flu or cold. If you have like children's Benadryl, a really low dose antihistamine, you can contain the spread of the virus through your secretions in your body, your mucus secretions, by taking an antihistamine, and gives your body a chance to catch up, your immune system to catch up before the secretions cause the virus to spread further in your body. So, I took a little bit of antihistamine, but the alcohol from moonshine or something or whiskey, I don't know. It could.
Well, I mean, it's not affecting at all as they're with.
Maybe a little bit.
I mean, it's not okay. All right. I heard that.
Can I also clear up another rumor or another kind of myth while we're at it?
Yeah, let's do that.
I heard somebody say something once about, well, you can't get sick from communion because that's Jesus. So drinking from the cup or receiving the bread, you can't get sick. And I had to go. Yeah, but the accidents of bread and wine are still there. Yes, we know that it's
right.
Accidents are still there. So anybody watching, if you've heard that too, it's not true. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll offer instead. What a blessing to be up to otherwise suffer, even up to death, for the sake of receiving the body and blood of Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all terminal. So, I mean, I sometimes say, gosh, what's the best way to die? What's the preferred way to die? In my sleep, with the slow morphine drip as I'm watching my relatives fade off and I don't have any pain. It would be great if we could find some painless way of martyrdom to assure our, release to heaven. But, if you got that sounds like a good death to me.
Well,
I can think of worse ways to go.
Well, I heard this today.
You're gonna get a great set of suffering in a 2-day flu to atone for some sins.
Well,
this is the best last meal you could ever have.
Yeah, that's true. Well, this is a whole different show, but I heard today that they were kind of joking, and a great place to go that is safe is a church. Because no one goes, and it's just like, oh yeah, they're making a joke, but I'm like, yeah, that's true. But I mean, I think it's kind of, I mean, it's going to be interesting, going to mass and what will happen, and what kind of amount of people are going to be showing up, because everybody's cutting around our area. They're not doing any big audiences, size of 100 or more. Any events are closed down. It just seems something more than just this is going on, that we just don't all. I mean, I have my. I have my ideas, but I'm not going to share them here. But it just seems like there's something more to this whole picture than meets the eye.
I think it's just the fear of the unknown. I mean, we don't know enough about this new virus. We don't know where it originated. We don't know how it's transmitted very well. We don't have a vaccine for it. It's so much uncertainty is going on that it's freaking people out and causing them to take a rate on toilet paper and whatnot. Yeah. So it's the panic that's doing us in. I mean, it's like the Black Plague, but with Wi-Fi.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Well, I appreciate both of your time. We're coming up to about an hour, and I know we could, but I just everybody, hang in there. Pray. Take your time. If you have to be, put up in your home, find some time to pray. I think this is a great opportunity for a lot of people to do that when you are at home, or we do pray for everyone that was affected by the coronavirus, especially any deaths and anyone that are sick right now. I do want to, we do want to pray for all of you, and I just again thank you, both of you, Jim and Bill, for coming on tonight. Thank you, Bill, for sharing your letter. I appreciate Jim. Always thank you for sharing your thoughts and insights. I always appreciate having you on. I thought it would be a great.
Sorry, I'm having all these problems with the lighting issues.
You're fine. You're fine. You're fine.
We'll make it better next time.
It's the coronavirus getting you.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Something's getting. Right. But either one of you, if either one of you wanted to end in prayer, that would be great. And I again just want to thank you all and everybody that was watching. Marco, thank you for chiming in and sharing. But either one of you, if would like to share a final prayer, that would be great. And just thank you again for your time.
Well, actually, I found a prayer. They're calling it a coronavirus prayer.
Okay.
You can find it on Rorate Celi. And it looks like it sounds better when it's done in Gregorian chant, but they had an English translation. Okay. It's actually by most accounts it's from like 1317 from the monastery of Santa Clara in Coimbra, Portugal. It was during a time of plague. So I also wanted to share this. We'll pray it, but I wanted to share it with everybody else out there. Unfortunately, I don't have a link to it. So if you're watching and you want it, you'll have to either go to Rorate Cheli or you'll have to like write it down as I'm saying it in this video. So, et nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. The star of heaven that nourished the Lord drove away the plague of death, which the first parents of man brought into the world. May this bright star now vouchsafe to extinguish that foul constellation, whose battles have slain the people with the wound of death. O most pious star of the sea, preserve us from pestilence. Hear us, O Lady, for thy Son honors thee by denying thee nothing. Save us, O Jesus, for whom thy Virgin Mother supplicates thee. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Yeah, thank you, Bill, for that. And again, I just want to, thank you everyone for watching. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are almost to 1,000 subscribers, we're really excited about that. I know we just want to appreciate everybody that supports Fiat. It's one of those just a labor of love that I've been doing for 10 years and continue to go. And I just all the people that we've shared and met, and just the friendships that we've had over 10 years has been just great. I will have I think I have a couple guests lined up next week. We're gonna look at another bill that is Bill Snyder mentioned. Her name is Penny, that has a great story to share, a testimony, just right up the aisle, for Fiat, sharing her Fiat saying yes to Jesus Christ. So we'll have her on, and I'm going to try to get Matthew Allner. He's been very busy and trying to get his ministry going, so I'm hoping to get him on in the next couple weeks to share his series that we did back in around Thanksgiving, on just Satan, how Satan is getting into the culture, and how do we battle that, and how do we just keep fighting the good fight. So I'm really excited about that. Again, make sure to watch all of Bill and Joe Miller's videos that they just did a coronavirus video last night that we uploaded onto YouTube. Really excited. We'll keep doing those videos. I think everybody's enjoying them. And Jim, I know you're always welcome back. Of course, Bill, you're welcome back. But again, thank you again. We'll see you next week on the Fiat Ministry Show. God bless and good night.